Hi, welcome to the DC Marvel Battlecast, where we discuss all things DC and Marvel related, and we debate who would win in versus battle matchups. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
The song at the beginning was, "What are you gonna do when you're not saving the world?"
What are you gonna do about it?
By Hans Zimmer. It's from the Man of Steel official soundtrack. That's the actual name of that song. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you could buy or stream music. We chose the song because this is our Man of Steel review episode.
Yeah, and it's what we're going to be doing from here on out when there's not something in theaters that we can review. Mm-hmm. And we try to alternate between review episodes and episodes in which we have a battle cast where we pit two Marvel and DC characters against each other.
Right.
So we're going to start reviewing past DC and Marvel movies, this being the first one. We thought it was most appropriate considering that
it's
Man
the
of
most
Steel
talked about superhero film to come out like in the past. What?
Most talked about? I would say it's the most controversial. It might be the most argued about. But it is also part of it's the start of the DC extended universe.
Right.
So, it's appropriate. It actually involves, or it has some involvement with some of the other movies that we will be reviewing and have reviewed this year.
Right.
So, look forward to that later in the episode. We're going to have a guest go ahead and review the movie with us.
Right.
It's my good friend Jay from Seattle. He is in charge of the Y2CL.net brand of comics and all the other crazy shit that he does. We'll have him on later. It should be a good time.
Yeah. So before we get into that, just a heads up, if you want to subscribe to us, do it on iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube.
Or Google Play. We're on Google Play now.
Right.
Just do a search for DC Marvel Battlecast.
Or what was it, Stitcher?
Or you can find us on Stitcher
That's
as well.
the thing. You can find us a lot of places. You can follow us on Twitter at DC Marvel Battle. You can email us at dcmarvelbattlecast@gmail.com and go ahead and send us any comments or commentary or questions you may have, and we'll read them during the next episode. Mm-hmm. So just a breakdown of what we're going to be going today. Before we go into the Man of Steel review, we're going to be talking about Geoff Johns and John Berg talking to the Wall Street Journal about the current state of the DC film universe. We're going to be talking about Joe Manganiello being cast as Deathstroke. Then we'll go into the first look at Bokeem Woodbine as the Shocker for Spider-Man Homecoming. Then the Marvel released the Thor.
What Thor was doing during Captain America: Civil War.
Yeah,
it was the video that was released during Comic-Con
that Maggie talked about during that episode. Then some TV news where we get some first looks at some costumes in both Marvel and DC side. So let's start with.
Oh, and I did want to go over my experience at the Marvel Avengers Station in Las Vegas. So I'll just
Marvel
do that really
Avengers
quick.
Station?
Yeah, it's called the Marvel Avengers Station. So
okay.
I'll try to do it better than how I described the Marvel Live show.
Oh gosh,
in our second episode, I think.
Yeah.
I think it went on for about 15 minutes just talking about the show, but I'll be quicker than that this time. But it was really cool, so it's worth talking about.
Good.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just start with that.
Okay. All right. So the Marvel Avengers Station, I wasn't quite sure what it was. My wife had got Groupon tickets, and we were planning a trip to Vegas with a lot of our friends. So we ended up going, and there were some other friends that were interested in checking it out and seeing what it was. My impression was that it was kind of like a museum of costumes. Mm-hmm. Because that's kind of what it looked like when I looked it up on online, just briefly.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to be
Is it like Planet Hollywood where they have like the actual props?
Yeah. So I thought it was going to be like Madame Tussauds or Planet Hollywood or something, but for Marvel. But it is way more immersive than that. It was really cool.
I remember seeing some of the photos on Facebook.
Yeah, I posted a lot of photos on Facebook. So you get there and all of the workers are dressed up as S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. It's really immersive, and it looks like you're going into a S.H.I.E.L.D. Kind of secret facility kind of thing. Like it's like TV quality production value. Like I went in there, I was like, how expensive was this? I go in there, and they give you basically what's an iPhone in like a kind of like a device looking, like gadget looking case. and on the device you get dossiers on each of the Avengers characters, which correspond to each of the rooms within the facility. So the first room that you go into is the Captain America room, and you can read all about his history, and they have holographic, like real holographic screen displays. It's like glass, but they're screens. Like you can see through them, but they contain like information, and like the text will change and like videos will show and everything. It's very Iron Man looking.
Why
it's really cool.
Does that not exist everywhere?
I don't know. But like they had Captain America's metal shield there, the one that was used in the movie, on display right behind the glass, and they had two heavy, really hard plastic versions that were outside the glass. But they had his Avengers costume there, and they had his motorcycle on display there, and it's really cool. It feels very much like the museum that Bucky Barnes went to. And Steve Rogers went to in The Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that. The narrator on your personal gadget device is Friday. It's the same actress. It's the same voice actress.
That's cool.
And you also get to see the birthing chamber. They have that there, where Steve Rogers was was given the super soldier serum and the Vita Rays and everything. So that was really cool. You go into the next room and you see the Hulk, and there's this big, huge screen, and on the screen is like a 2-scale image of the Hulk, and he like looks at you, and like he like flexes and he roars and everything like that. There's also a big hole in the wall that looks like the Hulk had crashed through it. And they show examples of his hands that they used on set to use as reference, like the ones he would wear.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing like behind the scenes set photos with Mark Ruffalo wearing like the the pajamas with the dots, but also like these huge hands.
Yeah, exactly. So those things were huge. Those were pretty cool. And there was I can't remember what the purpose was. If you hit a button on the wall, it would like cause the entire room to like the lights would flicker and like an alarm would go off, like there was a gamma contamination or something. I can't remember what the purpose of that was, but it was pretty cool. Like you got to learn about the mind, and they like you would have to take tests on it, quizzes and stuff like that before you could advance to the next room and stuff. Anyway, so that was the Hulk room. You go into the next room. That's That was the Vision, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Nick Fury room. They kind of all lumped them together. But you get to see Vision's birthing chamber, and you got to see all their costumes. The costumes probably was the best part of the exhibit, because like you got to see Ant-Man's costume, Falcon's costume up close, and like even like the bad guy ones, like the Chitauri and the Dark Elves from Thor and everything like that. And they had Ultron there as well.
His body.
Yeah, his body, but it was like torn up kind of, and when you approached it, actually there was like your personal device, it started playing audio like it was being taken over by Ultron, and that was kind of like the throw line. Like as you progressed through the facility, Ultron was taking it over as you looked at all these displays and everything.
That's really cool.
Yeah, there was a villain room. There was a Thor room. His hammer was on the ground, Mjolnir. And like you got to try to pick it up, and obviously it was bolted in, and everything. It was really cool. But did the end room?
Did they have Iron Man suits?
Yes, that's just what I was going to go to.
Okay, cool.
The last room, it was set up like the Hall of Armors from Iron Man 3, and so they had like the Mach 1, all the way through the Mark 1. Yeah, the Mark 1 through the Mark 6, and then they had the most recent one, and they had the Hulkbuster armor up there too. That thing is freaking huge. It's huge. It was like twice as tall as any man. It was really cool looking. And they had the War Machine armor there as well. And the Iron Man room was cool because you got to put your head into like this like little mask thing, and it was like virtual reality, and it would track your eye movement too. And you would have to like you were like flying through the desert, and you would blow up tanks just by looking at them and then blinking. And it would track your eye movement to know where to put the cursor.
That's
it was pretty
insane.
freaking sweet.
That is insane. Do you have photos of all this stuff?
Yeah, I have photos. Love it. But
you need to post those photos to like our Twitter feed or Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, I'll put them on Instagram.
By the way, if you didn't know we're on Instagram. We are totally on Instagram.
Yeah, we're on Instagram. DC Marvel Battlecast.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'll post them there. A lot of cool images there. But the best thing that I did not get any images of is at the very end, after you go through the Iron Man room, one of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent people are like, all right, yeah, now you're ready, or we have an emergency or something like that. You got to fight Ultron. So you go into this room, and the screen is as big as a wall, but it's like paneled. There's this big screen, and you stand in front of it. You stand on, because at the beginning you pick a character, which Avenger is your favorite. You pick that character, you stand on your spot, and with your iPhone, you play a little game, and it works with the screen, and you fight Ultron, basically. So, like, my wife was Hawkeye, and what you would do, like, on her screen was, like, a little bow and arrow, and she would pull back on the bow, release it, and then it would shoot, and you could see the arrow go on the screen. And Ultron would fly around to each player's screens, so you would attack him when he's on your screen. And eventually, it was like a video game. It was really sweet. I was Captain America.
How expensive was that? Holy crap.
Yeah, pretty damn expensive. There's only 2 of these facilities on Earth. There's one in Las Vegas and one in France, I think in Paris.
Oh, you think one would be in New York?
No, there isn't one.
Interesting.
Yeah. So eventually, obviously, you beat them, and then you get to become like a full-fledged S.H.I.E.L.D. member, and then you get to take a photo.
But you're an Avenger. Why would you want to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. member if you're already an Avenger?
I don't know. You're an Avenger, but you're also a S.H.I.E.L.D. member. So they give you like an ID card. Actually, I still have it. I'll show it to you. I'll put it on Instagram.
How expensive was it to get in there?
Not expensive. It was like $30.
Dude, that is so worth it.
It is so worth it. Like, it was way better than I thought it was just going to be like a display kind of thing. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I didn't know they were going to have the video games and all the immersiveness. So if you get a chance, go to Vegas, check it out. It is well worth it.
One question. How much did they pay you to say this on this podcast?
$0. I would have done it for money too, but I would have done it for free. Because I honestly had a really good time.
It sounds really cool. I can't wait until like DC has enough films to be able to do something.
DC's never going to do it.
Shut up.
DC's not cool enough to do it.
They will do it.
It would be cool if there was a Justice League version of that, though.
Well, like, I know that like Google had this thing going. I don't know if they still do, where you could tour the Batcave, sort of like Google.
Oh, really?
Maybe it would be just like that. It's the Batcave.
The Batcave. It's always Batman related. It would be cool if it was Justice League and you got to like see the actual like cyborg suit if it wasn't made out of computers
and part human.
So,
okay. Anyway, so
on to real news.
Yeah. Okay, so the Wall Street Journal, and I released this article a few days ago, and I just read it today because it was behind a paywall, which always kills me when they do that.
Yeah.
But it's been released now. You can check it out online. It's an interview with Geoff Johns and John Berg. They're the two heads of DC's film division. If you're not sure, or if you forgot who Geoff Johns is, he's a longtime writer of DC. He's basically like revamped, a whole bunch of characters for the better in the comics. And if you haven't checked out Rebirth yet, still definitely check that out. DC's still releasing Rebirth issues. Anyway.
Yeah,
Geoff,
tell me about this article because I didn't get a chance to read it.
Yeah, so they're just talking with the Wall Street Journal, and essentially like the whole article was basically about how their involvement is steering the DC film universe into a lighter tone.
Good.
They provided like quite a bit of insight into like what Warner Brothers, what their approach has been like to these films, and here's a quote from Geoff Johns. Mistakenly in the past, I think the studio has said, oh, DC films are gritty and dark, and that's what makes them different. They couldn't be more wrong, said Mr. Johns, who has written comic books featuring most of the company's top superheroes. Then he continues, it's a hopeful and optimistic view of life. Even Batman has a glimmer of that in him. If he didn't think he'd make tomorrow better, he would stop. Mm-hmm. Which I love reading quotes from him, because this guy totally knows these characters.
Yeah, he gets it more than the studios do.
Yeah. Later on in the article, apparently he was a creative consultant on BVS, but one with no authority.
Okay.
So
he can make suggestions, but they didn't have to listen to him.
Right, and now he's like the ultimate authority for DC films, which is great. And then it goes, another section of the article talks about how shocked Warner's executives were by the sort of critical backlash against the films,
because they're idiots. Yeah.
They believed that they created like more grounded character-based stories, that like the Dark Knight would sort of favorably stand out from Marvel films. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when I hear the words grounded and character-based stories, I think Marvel. I don't think DC. So I think
DC just kept trying to replicate the success of The Dark Knight in terms of tone and everything like that. And really, you can't do that unless you have Nolan. And if Batman is a unique character and he's adaptable in that sense. Yeah, in a way that the other heroes aren't.
I think they are. I mean, take a look at Man of Steel, and I think we're going to go into this partially.
It was not nearly as successful as The Dark Knight, Man of Steel.
No, it wasn't.
At that replicating that tone, I don't think it quite did it, or it did to its detriment.
It was still. We're going to go into that later. Okay. And then, so then John Berg kind of had a few comments on there saying that the Justice League was already intended to be less depressing than BVS, and so he and Geoff Johns worked with Chris Terrio to Chris Terrio. What did I say? Terrio to make changes, and he said that they accelerated the story to get to the hope and optimism faster.
Mm-hmm. Accelerated the story as in shortened the introduction parts.
Well, this was originally supposed to be 2 films.
Right.
The article is saying, they did away with that. It's 1 film now. I think, towards the end of the first film, or maybe the second film, they were going to sort of segue into the hope and optimism part of it.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, kind of bleak and dark at the beginning, maybe?
I don't know, maybe. To me, how I read this means that they're bringing Superman into the film earlier than I think they
were originally
going to.
Or going to,
yeah.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but that's how I read it. So then it goes on to say that Justice League will also directly address Batman's extreme actions in the last movie, straight up killing people.
So what is... I did hear that part. I'm wondering what that means for the movie. Is it going to be, remorseful? Is he going to somehow atone? Who's going to address it with him? How's that going to happen?
I think it's going to be Superman inspired him in some way to just be a better person. That's my theory.
Okay.
And the same way he kind of inspired the entire world.
Mm-hmm. Even though Superman kills in this universe.
Well, he killed one guy.
Yeah, but he snapped his neck.
We'll get into that. What else? So yeah, we can expect fewer of Zack Snyder's more controversial flourishes, like the nightmare sequence.
Yeah, that was stupid. He's a good director. He does have some pretty whacked out ideas.
Even looking at Man of Steel, the controversial ending where he snaps Zod's neck, that was actually inspired by a comic which was inspired by another comic, a Miracle Man comic written by Alan Moore.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just an Alan Moore fan. Just a dark kind of comics, kind of cerebral thing.
Interesting.
So yeah, what else did this article say? So Geoff Johns rewrote the Wonder Woman script.
He rewrote it? By how much?
Working with Patty Jenkins to rewrite it.
Uh-huh.
And he's right now co-writing Batman with Ben Affleck.
Good.
They also confirm, to segue into the next topic, they didn't drop the ball, but they got the scoop that Deathstroke is going to be the villain for the next Batman film.
The ultimate villain or just a villain?
He's the primary villain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Deathstroke is an assassin, so I'm assuming that there's someone behind him kind of that hired him.
I heard this interesting fan sort of theory for the film, or a fan fiction kind of story idea. It was where someone puts a hit out on the Joker, and Deathstroke is going to go kill the Joker, who's locked up in Arkham Asylum. So Batman has to protect the Joker inside of Arkham Asylum. But then it turns out that the Joker put the hit out on himself just so Batman could fall into his Arkham Asylum trap. I don't know.
That's pretty cool.
That would be so cool. When I heard that, I was like, please let that be the movie.
Because the rumor is that the Batman film is going to, in part, take place in Arkham Asylum or something, or involve it somehow.
Yeah, it's going to heavily involve Arkham Asylum.
So that'd be cool if that happens.
That would be super cool. So Ben Affleck released this test footage of Deathstroke. Mm-hmm. We learned that Joe I'm gonna butcher the name again.
Manganiello, I think. Manganiello.
Who was originally, I don't know, I like really haven't seen anything with him. I know he was in Magic Mike. He was the bully, Flash Thompson, in the original Spider-Man Sam Raimi film.
He was in True Blood, I think.
Yeah, never saw that. But apparently, I mean, he was almost Superman.
Yeah.
And then
he's the guy who I wanted to maybe play Shazam against The Rock's Black Adam. But since he's going to be Deathstroke now, I guess that can't happen. Yeah. And now I think The Rock should just play both parts.
I've kind of always thought that. But, so yeah, he was originally going to be Superman, but then he had to back out of that to be in True Blood, so Henry Cavill got the part. And then he was going to be Batman, but then they hired Ben Affleck instead. Mm-hmm. So I think the studio really wants to work with him, really wants to put him in a superhero role.
I think we all guessed that it was going to be Joe Manganiello that was in the outfit because he was in London at the time that Ben Affleck released the footage, and they're in London shooting Justice League.
I wasn't tracking that at all.
No?
Well, so he's definitely going to be in Batman. There's no official comment as to whether or not he's going to be in Justice League.
Well, he already has the Deathstroke goatee and the haircut.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't be surprised if he has some sort of small role, whether it's like after credits type of thing. Like Ben Affleck wouldn't go as far as to reveal the after credits scene if there's going to be one in Justice League, because that's kind of what that footage looked like to me.
And after you can see like the new Batmobile in the background. Mm-hmm. Apparently they're on the Flying Fox.
Yeah.
That's what people who had visited the set previously confirmed. They said that he's on the Flying Fox, which is interesting. I think it's going to be a post-credit thing, honestly. Mm-hmm. When apocalyptic bad guys are your villains, Deathstroke doesn't really compare to that, and I don't really see them hiring an assassin like him.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's going to work.
Cameo.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. But still, like, he looks so badass. He was in the Arrow TV show, and he looked really awesome there. I didn't think you could get a better looking Deathstroke. Mm-hmm. And then this footage, which is, he looks awesome. So, yeah, and I've seen fan art of him as Deathstroke, and it looked badass. So
what was your impression of the footage when you first saw it? Like, because nobody was expecting to see this footage.
Right.
And Ben Affleck just posted it on Instagram, I think it was. And, it was...
Or Twitter, one of those.
Also it was just Deathstroke. What was your initial reaction to it? Because mine was... I didn't even put two and two together. I was so dumb. It wasn't until later that possible inclusion in the Batman movie or Justice League. I thought he was just like showing maybe footage that he found from
what?
I don't know, some fan film. Or
when he posted that, I didn't make the connection to Justice League. I thought he was teasing Batman like test footage.
I thought it was like a costume test kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly, a costume test. I thought that's what it was.
And it might be.
It probably is. Mm-hmm. Although they're this far along. If it's not a costume test for Justice League, then it probably is actual footage for, or not test footage for Batman. That it probably is actual footage of Justice League.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but I interrupted you as far as your reaction.
Oh, yeah, I thought the costume looked really badass. The one gripe I would have is the ponytail. I don't get it.
The ponytail?
Yeah.
It's not a ponytail. It's like a bandana type thing.
No, he has like at the top of his head, he has, it's like this like Japanese kind of knot or kind of like ponytail thing.
Oh, I wasn't even paying attention.
It's really subtle because like the whole scene is pretty dark. Mm-hmm. But if you could just catch like brief flickering of his hair just flapping in the wind.
I think it's part of the helmet.
Which is okay. All right, your helmet just has a lock of hair, has a ponytail.
I'll have to watch that footage again because I don't think it's as prominent as you are thinking it is.
It's pretty prominent. Definitely watch it again. Let me know what you think.
Okay.
But I mean, and even then, because like there have been iterations of Deathstroke where he has sort of like these ties, I guess, like sort of like a ninja on the back of his helmet. So
it's like a bandana underneath his mask or something. Or
something like that. Yeah,
I guess. Or maybe it's not a helmet. Maybe it is a mask.
Yeah, I just hope the helmet allows him to see, like, out of both eyes, because that's going to be really sucky for, like, stunt work.
The Deadpool route, where the eye holes are open, and then they CGI and
Yeah,
the
you'd
eyes
have
in
to.
later.
You'd have to. The helmet was badass. I want that helmet. I want to be Deathstroke for Halloween now.
That would be a cool costume, actually.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's cool. Good news.
Yeah.
Congrats, I guess.
Yay.
We'll see how that all turns out. Another superhero costume villain news. Gotta first look at the Shocker on the set of Spider-Man Homecoming.
But these weren't like official.
These were like spy set photos.
Yeah.
We're not sure if it's Bokeem Woodbine underneath the outfit or not. But, so speaking of Shocker, he's always, like, when I first saw the Shocker, like, in the cartoons and in the comics and everything like that, I thought that the lines around his around the yellow parts of the suit were almost like live wire, like
circuitry,
kind of like that, like power his shockers and things like that. It wasn't until later that I found out that they're like quilted pillows.
Yeah.
Like he's like kind of like fluffy.
He's Quilt Man.
Yeah, he's like Quilt Man, and that's to kind of absorb the shockwaves that he shoots out, which makes sense functionality wise. And Shocker kind of lost a little bit of respect in my eyes when I saw that, because I thought it was much cooler to kind of them be kind of like electrical fence stuff, wiring stuff. So I was kind of curious to see how they were gonna go with the live action costume, if he was gonna have like this quilted, puffy look, and instead what we got was, if you've seen the photos, it's very leathery. It's like all leather, and it looks like combat fatigues.
Yeah.
He has a combat vest on.
Definitely like military kind of style.
Yeah, he has a combat vest on, and the yellow portion of his costume also looks like leather, and it's very loose. It's very drapey. And it has kind of a diagonal pattern on it, but it's not like quilted in. It looks almost like a print on his sleeves, kind of. Yeah. He still has the mask and everything. It's just like a yellow mask, also very drapey, kind of very dirty looking. I was surprised. Like, I think you what did you say to me?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was like, why is it made of dirty bananas?
Yeah, looks like
old bananas.
Old bananas, kind of. It looks like they're kind of dripped over him. His mask has these goggles, these lenses that are built into the mask, and he has his trademark kind of V-shape mohawk. It's not a mohawk in the sense that it stands up, but it like goes along the top of his head like a mohawk, and it's brown. And I'm not sure what function that has for this costume, but it's there, and I don't know what to think of it. He almost looks like a firefighter, like the clothes that firefighters wear, like underneath their jackets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It almost looks like he has been through a fire, like he's wearing that and he's been through a fire, and he has a helmet and everything.
Yeah. What do you think of the goggles? They're like goggly, right?
They look like the whole outfit itself looks very homemade. Like, I don't know. It's not like an impressive suit in terms of like, wow, you get to tell the studio spent a lot of money on this, because it looks like they spent like literally $5 on this.
They went to the thrift store.
They maybe went to the thrift store, and I don't know if that has plays into like the who the character is and how he's being portrayed in this. But it is not expensive. Well, like the wrist. Shockwave shooters, his blasters on his wrists, those look expensive. They're like metal and they look very high tech and everything. But the rest of them looks very hobo firefighter.
Yeah,
hobo firefighter, supervillain, Banana Man. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen the photos yet, go ahead and Google them. Just I guess Google Spider-Man Homecoming Shocker outfit revealed, something like that.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works. Like, I'm not sold on it 100%, but I don't know how the character is going to be portrayed. If they're kind of selling him as kind of like a homegrown kind of like built everything in his garage kind of villain, then yeah, I can see how this works. But as far as like the Spider-Man villain as I know him, and I'm sure maybe he gets this stuff from the Tinkerer, I don't know. I
still hope he's not delegated to some kind of Rhino role.
He probably will be.
That sucks.
Look at him.
Yeah.
How much do you want to bet that the Shocker's shockwave blasters on his wrist were made by the Tinkerer?
Yeah, and that's probably true. But then again, my big thing is that I think the Shocker is more powerful than the Vulture. So why even include him?
just as a lesser villain, I guess.
Oh,
Because like I said, you don't want the Shocker as your main villain because he's not good enough to be the main villain.
I can see that. I was doing some research into the Shocker once these photos were posted. Mm-hmm. I always thought he shot like shockwaves, like energy. He shoots vibrational air waves.
Yeah.
Isn't that what a repulsor is?
It's like no, it's like a shockwave. He shoots shockwaves.
He shoots vibrations.
Well, what do you think a shockwave is? Like,
but no,
a shockwave
like,
is a vibration.
All right.
So that's it for that news, basically.
Yeah.
So Google him if you haven't seen him.
The next thing on our list is the Thor Comic-Con footage that was released about what Thor was doing during the Captain America Civil War.
I didn't think that they were going to release this. I thought it was just going to be one of those Comic-Con exclusive things, but it came out with the Captain America Civil War Blu-ray and digital download. It's pretty hilarious. I think it was directed by how do we pronounce his name? Taika Waititi?
Something like that.
I'm going to butcher that.
White titty.
He directed like episodes of like Flight of the Conchords stuff. You know who he is? He was Hal Jordan's friend in the Green Lantern movie.
No way.
Yeah, that's him.
Oh,
he's directing the Thor movie.
He was in. Did you see What We Do in Shadows? Mm-mm. I guess he directed that, but he was also a character in that film.
Oh, was he?
Interesting.
I have to see that because I've never seen any of his work, and I heard that What We Do in the Shadows is a pretty funny vampire film.
It's pretty good.
I think it's set in New Zealand. I think.
Yeah.
Because I think Taika Waititi is
from New Zealand.
From New Zealand.
Yeah.
So basically, just played for laughs. Probably, definitely not canon. I think Thor was.
I was going to ask you that. Is it canon?
Other stuff as opposed to just hanging out with Daryl in Australia. I like his little board that he has up in his room that ties into the Infinity Stones. And like when he talks about like the purple man in the chair, like why is he always sitting?
How does he even know about Thanos?
See, I don't think he's supposed to.
Right.
That's why I think this isn't canon. But I'm glad we got to see it. It served no purpose other than I think to kind of remind people that hey, Thor is
I hope the conversation
between
him and Bruce Banner is canon. Because that was my favorite part of the whole thing.
The Raven thing?
Yeah, where he's like, have they called you? And he's like, no. And then he gets a phone call from Tony at that moment. And Bruce is like, yeah, he's been trying to reach you. He's like, I don't have a phone. Send a Raven.
That's pretty good. And then Bruce Banner's reaction to that was pretty good as well. So... I don't know. I didn't know what else to say about it. If you haven't seen it, Google what Thor was doing during Captain America Civil War, and it's good for a few laughs. I liked it
for sure. Was it as funny as you thought it was going to be from hearing about it from Comic-Con?
It wasn't like funny, haha. It was more like funny, that's cute kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the whole gag with Mjolnir, where he's like taking a nap in one of the drawer chests, in one of the shelves, the drawers, and then like there was a little sketch that Thor drew of like a Mjolnir with like big muscles who's holding like a mini Thor. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I think Chris Hemsworth has pretty damn good. I think we learned this in the first Thor movie. He has pretty damn good comedic timing. And I think his preference as an actor is to do comedy, and he keeps getting put in like these like macho roles because he's a big dude.
Yeah.
And I remember like last year, I think, or something, he had mentioned how he really loved Guardians of the Galaxy and he wants Thor 3 to have like a more comedic tone. And like people were like, no, like the problem with the Thor movies is that their tone is too comedic. Which I agree with. I would like to see a Thor movie that has less comedic characters, but I think getting rid of like Darcy and Jane Foster, those characters, if you can find comedy that is like kind of naturally presented within the circumstances that he's in at the time, I think it could work. You don't want a slapstick comedy thing, like you don't want Thor cracking jokes,
right?
But I think putting in like a few moments here and there will work, and like the style of humor that was in this documentary short was very
Definitely wasn't slapstick.
It wasn't slapstick. It wasn't like purposeful. It was like I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's almost
it was like Flight of the Conchords.
It was like funny by proxy almost.
Yeah,
you know?
it was like Flight of the Conchords. It was kind of like I don't want to say dry. I guess dry. But not too dry.
It was the opposite of the kind of humor that like Darcy and Jane Foster and Selvig go for, which is kind of a little bit more juvenile in its approach and very straightforward in its approach, I guess. Mm-hmm. This is amusing in a more roundabout way, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for that. In the next bit of news, we have we got our first official look at the actor Gabriel Luna as Robbie Reyes, as he will appear in the next season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider. So the first image was featured in Entertainment Weekly, and it's kind of him sitting in what looks like a junkyard, and there's like a bunch of junked out cars and car parts and machinery behind him, and he's wearing his something that we haven't seen in a live action Ghost Rider yet, which is the leather jacket that has the kind of rectangle shape across the chest.
That's specific to that character, right?
No, that's not true. Johnny Blaze
really
has a jacket that was like that in his first incarnation, and he kind of became less of a staple of the character as time went on with Johnny Blaze. But in the Robbie Reyes version, it's very prominent. It's very white, and with Johnny Blaze's character, it was just like if his jacket was black, that thing was like dark blue.
Yeah,
the rectangle. So
I mean, it looks really faithful to the comics, but I'm wondering how faithful the flaming skull will be to the comics, because his flaming skull is not like a flaming skull. It's more like a white
so
skull helmet kind of thing.
Like it. Well, it's
has a hole in his forehead,
kind of like a reminiscent of like a machinery, like a tech version of a sugar skull kind of thing. I think that's what they were going for.
That's a like good description of it.
Skull.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to see, and I don't think that's what we'll get according to that very brief teasers that we got of the laughing skull for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's true. That was a straight on skull.
See, now here's the thing: the look of Ghost Rider's flaming skull in Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance was 1,000,000 times better than his appearance in the first Ghost Rider movie.
See, I never saw the second one. Why was it better?
It was better because it was black. It looked like
a black skull.
It looked like it, yeah. And
like it was burning.
Yeah, like it was actually burning. Like it was like it had been burning.
Like, I remember seeing like photos of this motorcycle. I noticed that there was like a lot more black in the fire.
Yeah. So I think that when you have the white skull in film, when you have the white skull that's on fire, it makes the fire look fake and very CGI, because it's very uncanny valley. When the skull is black, as it was in Spirit of Vengeance, just by nature of it being black and looking charred and everything like that, it made the character look more real, and like how he would appear in the real world. Because things, when they burn for that long, turn black, especially bones.
Right.
So
we speak from experience. No, we don't.
So in the first Ghost Rider movie, he looked very CG. Like the fire. I mean, the fire effects were good in both movies, but in the second movie, the flames moved a little bit more with his head. They moved a little bit better. They looked less CGI. They looked a little bit more real. Everything looked a little bit more real. Like even in the Spirit of Vengeance, his leather jacket and all his clothes were like charred. Like the leather was like bubbling.
It's a cool look for Ghost Rider.
It was a really good look. It's the best look. I hope this one matches.
I doubt it.
I doubt it will, because they only have so much of a budget.
Right.
I hope it's black. That's just my hope, I guess. I hope it's a black skull.
I'm still wondering how he's going to play a role in a spy show. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we'll figure that out. There was a synopsis that was released in coordinates with this image being released, saying that Coulson, now due to the Accords that were in Civil War, the world is more trusting of heroes, I guess, and Coulson doesn't have to be so like Black Ops with his S.H.I.E.L.D. unit, so he gets to lead his own like legitimate S.H.I.E.L.D. team now, and somebody else is the director and everything, so he's out in the field. So that's why we see him like in the state that he was at the end of last season. which was not the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. So,
spoiler. Not that I'm going to watch the show, but I didn't know that.
I don't think that's a huge spoiler. I mean, it was just revealed in the in the synopsis. So
Yeah.
I think it has much bearing. There were 2 images actually of the actor.
One of them was he was like in a junkyard.
Yeah, one of them he was in a
Scrap.
junkyard, and in the other one looks like in like an auto shop kind of thing. There's like tires in the background and everything. So I'm not sure if he's a mechanic. He's obviously a car fanatic. Still wish we were getting the motorcycle with this, but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. He definitely looks like Robbie Reyes from the comic. So at least there's that going from him.
Yeah, I just realized, like, I have no idea how that's going to look with a Ghost Rider sitting in a car.
Just like it does in the comics.
I see. I've never read that comic. Like, I feel like anytime I've ever seen him, he's always been outside of his car.
Flaming wheels, and it's a black car. He's just driving.
Is it a convertible?
No, it's not a convertible.
Oh, all right. So he's just burning the roof of his car. Flames
Pretty
are just
much.
going out the window.
Yeah, I guess.
Motorcycle is way cooler.
Motorcycle is way cooler. You kind of need that. You need the flames to breathe, You can't enclose them up. So,
all right. Well, speaking of accurate to comic television costuming, so they like just released this behind the scenes shot of Arrow, the TV show. They're filming it, and so we got to see our first look of Mr. Terrific, Wild Dog, and Black Canary. I'm assuming.
Is that Black Canary?
It's the new Black Canary, and I feel like so she has like this like black paint smeared across her eyes. I don't think that's a mask. I could be wrong. It's kind of a crappy photo, but I remember for some reason that rings a bell for some kind of Black Canary look,
Really?
and I can't remember like where it came from. Whether it came from like Injustice or something else.
Is it going to be Dinah?
No,
What's your last name again? Dinah. It's not Lance.
Lance. Yeah.
I thought it was different. Like she changed her last name to Metro Moms or something like that.
Well, no. Her mom was Dinah Lance. Black Canary is Dinah Laura Lance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
She was married for a while, and I forgot what her last name was then. Anyway, but the big thing for me is Mr. Terrific's suit. Mm-hmm. The guy who plays him, I can't remember his name. Echo Kellum. That was it. Looks exactly like he was ripped from the comic.
Yeah, it's a pretty faithful costume. Like I can't imagine like a movie costume being better than that.
Well,
if they ever make.
I thought the same thing
Mr.
about Deathstroke too. I mean, the least faithful comic costume in this shot is Green Arrow's, which is unfortunate because like he's fully sleeved and his costume last season was great. It was really good.
Yeah,
best costume. And then there's also Wild Dog, who I'm not familiar with at all.
I didn't even recognize him. I thought he looks like Freddy.
Jesse Voorhees.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jason Voorhees.
Yeah,
from Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, but I Googled him, and that is also like ripped straight from the comic. So it's exciting to see that. So I mentioned earlier.
What does Wild Dog do? Do you know?
I have no idea, honestly.
Looks like Casey Jones.
He probably is exactly like Casey Jones. I thought it was Sportsmaster initially, but then because he
I don't know who that is.
Oh, well, he's a DC Comics character. He was in like the Young Justice TV show and stuff like that. Anyway, so I speculated in a previous episode that I thought John Diggle was gonna be Mr. Terrific, and that his Spartan helmet was gonna like sort of like represent what like the T-sphere mask was supposed to be, because Mr. Terrific's mask is essentially just like there's a T
the letter
painted
T
on his face. Yeah. It's like skin tight.
Covers his face, and then the center covers his eyes horizontally, and then the bottom
his
of his
nose
face.
and mouth. Yeah. Vertically. So I thought like the Spartan helmet would be like a good like television interpretation, live action interpretation of that. Mm-hmm. But no,
you got the real thing now.
They went straight up and did the real thing, which is really cool.
Looks way better.
So I'm gonna have to watch the show. Pretty much, I think that's what that means.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I've always liked Mr. Terrific as a character.
Yeah.
He's always been fairly interesting to me.
I think
I like his T-spheres.
I think the last time I brought him up, I said his name was Terry Sloan. That's the original Mr. Terrific.
Okay.
The
fair play guy?
Yeah, the black one. Well,
They're both fair play.
they're both. Michael Holt is the noob, Mr. Terrific.
Okay. Way to drop the ball on that.
Yeah, I know. I was like, dang it.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for all the news. So let me go ahead and get Jay on the line, and we'll go ahead and review Man of Steel.
Sweet.
All right, welcome Jay to the DC Marvel Battlecast. We are getting into the review of Man of Steel, and right before we get into that, let's go ahead and Jay, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your history with comic books and superheroes.
Sure. So, as you said, my name's Jay. I've been into comic books since I was a kid. My dad was huge into comics. My dad read comic books from the 50s on. He collected comics in the 60s and 70s and 80s. He went to open his own store in the 80s, and he had...
Oh, wow.
I remember as a kid, he had an 8x10 bedroom full of comics, and in that room, he had short boxes of X-Men ones, short boxes of Spider-Man ones. I remember going in there and seeing like 100 copies of the first Prince of Spider-Man in my dad's office, and like 100 copies of the first X-Men and the first Daredevil and all this stuff. And he was I was about probably 8 or 9 at the time, so that got me peaked on comics. And so he would read me comics, and I learned to read off of Superman and Batman and Wolverine.
Yeah.
So
as most comic readers do.
Yeah.
Right. He my dad was primarily a Superman fan, so he collected Superman back in the day, and in the 80s he ended up selling off his entire collection. But I still have a list of everything. And I like to talk about it because you can never do it today, especially unless you were a millionaire. But he had Superman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, Brave and Bold 28, and the first Justice League. And he had pretty much Superman 1 through the ending in 1987, with the exception of maybe like 20 books, all of it. And I remember...
So did he become a millionaire from selling this? Because he better have.
I didn't know you were rich, Jay.
No.
I'm getting like a cold sweat just listening to all of this.
It's
like too much power for one man.
It is, and I get a little upset every time I tell the story, because what ended up happening is in 1987, 89 timeframe, somewhere in there, my dad ended up selling all of them because he needed to buy food and pay rent.
Right.
So he called up our local comic book dealer and sold all of them for $8,000. And that's not an exaggeration of low. He $8,000 cash up front, and he sold all of that.
Well, you got to think, how much more would he actually get today?
He would get a lot more.
In 2004, I counted up...
In cash?
In 2004, I counted up what he had, and I stopped counting at $2.4 million worth of books.
Oh, my God.
And I wasn't even halfway through what he had. What I knew he had. Because he had a basically, it would have graded out as a 6.0 copy of Superman 1.
Wow.
And he had a
This got depressing.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite superhero movie? It's not Batman and Robin, right?
No, it's not Batman and Robin.
There's a delay.
Yeah, well, the delay was on purpose. It's a toss-up, really, because I really enjoy The Dark Knight, just because who doesn't enjoy that movie, right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
But
I'm raising my hand.
Joseph's raising his hand. Put your hand down.
European doesn't count. But if I had to pick one superhero movie that I would watch over and over again, I don't know. It'd probably be I really liked Guardians of the Galaxy a lot, and I've watched that a ton, and it's just that's one of my favorites. I also really liked. I actually really enjoyed Suicide Squad, and I've watched it a couple of times since it came out. But
really?
I think that's too new to say it's a favorite, but because it was just a lot of fun. It has a lot of problems, with the story, but I just still enjoy it.
I don't think it's gonna hold up.
No, it's not gonna hold up. In 10 years, it's gonna watch it again and go, "What the hell was I thinking?" But right now, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's hard because I always go back and forth. If you'd asked me this question 4 years ago, I would have said Man of Steel, because I really loved Man of Steel when it first came out. But again, when a movie first comes out, you can't really call it your favorite because things change.
Yeah. Well, it's good that we're reviewing this film then. And what I probably should have said at the beginning is that I've known Jay through the internet, I should say, because he lives in Seattle, for about 7 or 8 years now.
A while.
And we both ran webcomics, and we met through that. And during our conversations together, I've known him as a huge collector of comics and is very knowledgeable of comics and kind of has his own kind of like comic media conglomerate kind of thing.
He's a media mogul.
You have your website with your... How many different webcomics do you have?
11.
A lot.
11.
11?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So, and we'll do all the plugs at the end after the review, but if you guys ever get a chance, go ahead and go to y2cl.net and just see all the magic that is Jay.
Oh, thank you.
Because he's a funny guy.
I try.
All right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the review then. Jonathan's going to go ahead and lead this because he's the only one that's seen the movie most recently.
First of all, I want to clarify, Jay. Do you consider yourself a DC guy or a Marvel guy?
I am 100% a DC guy.
That's right, motherfucker.
100%. Even though I'm wearing a Captain America shirt right now, but I wore it just for Joe.
Nice.
But I am...
Take it off.
Not the kind of show. That's for the after show.
Okay.
I mean, my collection of comics is mostly DC. Like I collect old Supermans, I collect old Supergirls and stuff, and most of my 90% of my collection is DC stuff with a little bit of Marvel thrown in here and there. Because like I do like Wolverine, I do like X-23, I do like some Marvel characters, but most of my stuff is all DC.
As long as your favorite superhero movie is Marvel, then we're good.
Well, he doesn't know what his favorite is right now.
Okay. Let's get into it.
I'm wishy-washy, man. It changes from week to week.
All right. Let's get into the Man of Steel review. How to start? Okay, so this film is super controversial. I know when I saw it in theaters, I loved it. I didn't really understand like why people didn't like it, and I kind of learned later on that it was the Man of Steel film, of course, was a byproduct of Christopher Nolan's Batman films, right? So it kind of had this grounded approach to it. But the only way you could really ground Superman is to make it a first contact sci-fi tale. So I understood that going in.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons I really liked it, because Superman as a sci-fi genre story still works really well.
Yeah.
And it may not be like the Superman that most people may be familiar with from like the cartoons and stuff like that, but to me it was still Superman. It was sort of like an Elseworlds in a way. And I really liked it. And I like it more every time I see it.
Yeah, I like that aspect too. I like the fact that it wasn't just a rehash of what we've seen before. It wasn't the same thing from the classic Superman films or even the classic serials from the 40s. It was a new take on the Man of Steel. Even if it was a little dark in color tone, it was an interesting way to bring him into the modern world. Yeah,
and of course, when we did get the rehash, we got Superman Returns.
Right, and that was special.
Terrible.
Yeah, it was special.
So I'm glad they took this. They had to take this new approach, because when you try and repeat what Richard Donner does, you get a piece of shit movie like Superman Returns, where Superman doesn't even throw a single punch in the whole thing. So,
right.
Yeah.
I went into the film understanding what kind of film it was going to be, and I think not too many people went in that same way.
Yeah. How cool was the opening Krypton sequence?
Okay.
It felt very immersive. It almost felt like, I know Avatar came out a couple years or a year before that. It felt almost as immersive as the Avatar planet, I think.
Absolutely.
Like you had the dragons, and it was just the way they realized Krypton was so imaginative.
It was great world building.
It was fantastic. It was amazing seeing Krypton for the first time. I mean, because like that, what they showed in the movie was what Krypton was shown as in the classic comics. Like, in the Donner films, Krypton was this white glass scientific, sterile world. But in the comics, it was always this imaginative, giant sci-fi fantasy world that had all these fantastical things in it. And to see that on film for the first time, it was literally mind-blowing. I remember being in theaters going, this is amazing. Like, This is
Yeah.
I've always dreamed of seeing this Krypton on film. Never thought it would happen, and here it is.
And the pacing of this sequence is so well done as well. I mean, you start off with the birth of Kal-El, and you learn that he's so, like, you know, in Joseph Campbell's, what is the name of his book, or Hero of a Thousand Faces, or something like that. I'm probably butchering it. I forget. Anyway, these hero characters are always supposed to have these special births, and Superman always kind of had that, in that he was an orphan, and, you know, he was an alien. But the fact that they made him, like, introduced him into this, like, super sci-fi new brave world type kind of planet, and he's like the first natural birth in centuries. I thought that was so brilliant. I thought that added so much more to the character.
Oh, that's right, because all the other Krypton kids were born in, like, the Matrix Codex thing.
Yeah, and they were born like you know, they were born to fulfill a specific role within society, whether that be like a warrior or a leader.
Yeah, they were born by committee. That's right. It was right. I agree. Thinking back on that now, that's a great way of setting Superman apart from the other Kryptonians, because there's always more Kryptonians that show up in the Superman comics and the movies, always. But that's a great way to separate him, that he's not an average Kryptonian. There's something special about him. Besides him coming to Earth when he was a baby, besides growing up with the Kents, he has this extra element from Krypton that makes him stand apart.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was brilliant. So the council, I thought, was really well done as well. You learn right off the bat, like, the stakes that are happening right now. Their world is about to end, and you know, it's their fault. It was a great analogy to, like, what's kind of going on in our world, without getting, like, preachy at all. You know, I thought it was great, because, like, there's always been different reasons for why Krypton was exploding, but it was never, like, the Kryptonians' fault. It was always just, like, the sun or the planet or the environmental circumstances that they found themselves in. But, you know, in this case, the people destroyed their own planet.
Yeah, through mining, I think. Was it mining?
They harvested the planetary core.
Okay.
Which would make sense why it was, you know, it gave a perfect what's the word I'm thinking of? Justification for Zod to take out the council, because the leaders were irresponsible. And then to introduce the bloodlines into that was so Hitler. I don't know how else to describe it. The fact that, like, he was like, you know, we're going to get rid of the degenerative bloodlines that led us to this.
Purify the race. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
Race purification.
Which is very Nazi, very Hitler.
Really interesting. Right, right. You don't get more villainous than Hitler. They totally went there.
I have to say, I think the first 20 minutes of this film were probably my most favorite 20 minutes, I think. Just because, I mean, and I can understand why, which network, Sci-Fi Network is going with a Krypton TV show.
Yeah.
Is because it would be cool. Like, I almost wanted to see a full movie that was kind of based in this world and everything.
I wonder how true they're going to be to that, though. Because that looked expensive.
Yeah, it did. But that show is supposed to be based 2 generations before Superman, so it's supposed to be all that fantasticalness we saw in that first 20 minutes in a TV show on Sci-Fi, which I really want that to be good. Like, I so want that to be a good show.
I'm hoping. I don't know. It's on Sci-Fi.
Exactly.
What else do they have good that's on there? I don't know.
Sharknado.
Right. Yeah. Didn't they just cast, like, Zod's grandmother or something like that? I don't know. We didn't report that in our news section.
Dog's drinking water.
Joseph's dog is being really loud.
Hurry up, dog. So, I think Zack Snyder, I think just goes to show how many good ideas he brought in. One of the bad ideas that he had was making the Phantom Zone ships look like penises.
Oh, gosh.
Didn't they look like dicks flying into the, like, a energy vagina?
Only to you, dude. Only to you.
It was very,
it
was very phallic,
and to me,
but
I'll admit it. Well, it was kind of like a what's his name, like Geiger, the same guy who did the alien designs for H.R. Geiger. Yeah, they were very, like, organic and sexual. I don't know if I want to go there. Organic. We'll say organic. All of the designs, which I thought was interesting. It makes the look more interesting because like even everything from like the style of clothing was very alien and organic, and even the Superman logo. I remember when I first saw that, like, and they were explaining the design behind the new logo that was used in this film, and how the designer was just really, really pushing an organic, like, curved look for everything Kryptonian. I love that logo. It's great design.
Yeah,
It's pretty good.
I agree.
What's his face? Russell Crowe ended up being a pretty big badass in the film, I think.
Yeah.
He ended up being
when he put on his like special
in it a lot more than I thought he was going to be in it too. Like,
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
was
expect him to have
fantastic,
that big of a part in the movie that he did.
Yeah, when he appeared later on, I was like, what the what?
Yeah.
He could kick Marlon Brando's ass. That's all I'm
Yes.
saying. He had a pretty good
I
fight
agree.
scene.
It's like the most Gladiator we've seen him be since Gladiator.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty BA in the whole movie. I mean,
The one, if I had any gripe, it was that he was able to take out Zod in a fisticuffs match. Like,
Why?
I would have preferred. So, like, earlier when he was, like, being apprehended by Zod's soldiers, he used Helix to, like, blind them. So he was using, like, technology to get, like, the advantage. I wish they would have sort of kept running with that. Like, he would, like, be using, like, technology to help combat against...
I think it makes him more of a badass, and you kind of understand why Zod may respect Jor-El so much, because he does have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I don't know.
I could see that. This whole like scene, I think, especially like being a parent, I think it has much more, I guess, meaning in a way. Or I definitely got major feels even during these opening sequences, like when they're saying goodbye to the baby and giving up their child, and just when the father dies and stuff. It's a great sort of emotional scene.
it is, and those scenes resonate more when you have kids too. I think, like,
I think so. Yeah,
know.
This whole film, honestly, because like there are major themes of like fatherhood and legacy, and sort of like passing or like just like raising your kids, like having these expectations for your children, and can those children like live up to those expectations, and to like what their fathers want of them, I guess, in a way.
right?
Yeah, and it's carried through with Kevin Costner as well. I think both father figures in this film were really good. Both were pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
basically, the first 20 minutes of this movie are good, and then it all goes to shit.
Oh my gosh!
Right. That's when the movie gets bad.
I disagree, sir.
I disagree.
Too.
I think you're in the minority here in this one.
That's right. So, is there anything else we want to say about Krypton before we move on?
Yeah, I think the Krypton scene is, I mean, we said all we could say about it, but it was beautiful. Like, everything about that scene. I wanted it to last longer, honestly.
Yeah, it would have been cool.
Yeah. Hopefully the show allows that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once we get to Earth, the narrative starts taking a less linear approach, and it kind of starts jumping around between Kal-El's like search for meaning, I guess, in life, and his kind of flashbacks between of his earlier life.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at like the themes of the film, like for Jor-El, it was all about his son. Sort of like living out and creating his own destiny, and ultimately, Jor-El wants Kal-El to help the people of Earth, and then if you look at Jonathan Kent's sort of theming for Kal-El, he doesn't really want the world to know about Kal-El, about Clark. He doesn't want Clark to reveal himself until he knows who he is, and until he's ready to do that. So there's themes about like finding yourself, and I think the beginning of like the Earth scenes does a really good job of like sort of making you feel like as lonely as Clark feels, and as how like kind of lost as he is as well.
Yeah, it's really somber, those first few scenes. On the boat and in the bar. That bar scene was kind of hilarious.
Yeah. You really Henry Cavill did a good job of really like emoting that he was holding back, that he was not doing everything he knew he could do, in those situations, because he couldn't, he had to hold back. He couldn't, Superman it up and throw the guy across. I mean, he did smash his truck, but he could like show off.
That's one of the things that I love about the Superman early on, is because he doesn't know he's Superman yet. He does selfish things like that.
Yeah.
He steals clothes.
Right.
He's kind of torn between, it's a very human take on Superman. And that's always sort of been his appeal, is that, there's this human guy with these alien powers. Clark Kent has always been part of the appeal of Superman. But I feel like this is the most human we've ever seen Clark Kent. Because when you look at the old, the Richard Donner films, the way Christopher Reeve always portrayed Clark Kent was just sort of like a bumbling idiot. He was fake. It was an act. And in this one, you get to see Clark before that. Not that we ever get that, as we see in Batman v Superman, but Clark Kent is never an act. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because he's still learning who he is. He's still trying to define what his Kryptonian side means to him and what it means that he can do. And he has this, it makes sense because he spent his whole life as Clark Kent, and then finds out that he has, as he grows up, he finds out he has, super strength and speed, and has this alien past, and that is the alien side to him, even to him in this stage of his life. Is this Superman part of him is the newness. That is the costume. That is the alter ego. He hasn't gone to the point where, in some of the comics and the cartoons where Clark Kent's the alter ego and Superman's who he really is. In this first movie, it's very much he's Clark Kent becoming Superman, and he hasn't made that shift yet. He's still very much human in all of his, the way he thinks and the way he processes things. He's building to that Superman-ness. It's
the Batman Begins of Man of Steel. I mean,
which is exactly what they were going for.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the point.
So he works his way up to the North Pole, to the Arctic, South Pole, North Pole.
Yeah, and that's where we get introduced to Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Which I have to admit, I only have a few gripes with this film, and like two big changes I would recommend. And this isn't necessarily a change, but again, it's one of my gripes. Is I didn't really think Amy Adams' Lois Lane was that great.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, she's a good actress, but I don't. She was sort of like the weakest link of this film to me.
She's better than what's her name from Superman Returns, Kate Bosworth.
Oh God,
for
yes.
sure.
Anyone's better than Kate Bosworth from Superman Returns.
Yeah. Name any character in that film, and the characters in this are way better.
I have to agree too, because I like Amy Adams. She's a really good actress, but I just don't think she was given enough to do, or enough importance in the movie. She seems like, even in Man of Steel and in the sequel, she seems like she's just there because she has to be there. But they didn't have enough writing behind her to make her seem more important. They had to make up stuff for her to do. It really felt like she was just thrown there because she had to be in the movie. There had to be a Lois Lane.
I do kind of wish that I know Clark Kent and Lois Lane have a romance in the comics. They get married and everything. But I kind of wish they would have left the romance angle out of this one. It was kind of unnecessary, and it kind of detracted from the film in some places.
Right, but Superman and Lois Lane for a long time, Clark and Lois for a long time were very much, it was Clark who was into Lois, but Lois didn't give two shits about Clark because she was too busy being the world-class reporter, right? And
yeah, that's true.
I kind of agree with you that if they would have left out the romance, at least so much of it being a romance going back and forth and them ending up together in the end, it would have made for a bigger payoff down the road, right? To where they had the time where Clark finds her and says, "Oh, this Lois Lane's great." but she's too busy being Lois Lane to care about him in that way. And he basically does what he does and builds himself up to where she does care about him. It would have made for a way bigger payoff down the road than just, oh, here's Clark, here's Lois, here's Superman. She knows they're in love. You know,
I agree. Well, I think the classic mythology goes Lois, for a long time, Lois was in love with Superman and wouldn't give Clark the time of day.
Right.
In this movie, though, she finds out that Clark Kent is Superman pretty damn quick.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. Yeah.
I know there's a gripe amongst a lot of people who watch the fans, but honestly, like, I didn't mind it because, like, she had already known for so long in the comics, so I was already just familiar with that.
Well, yeah, that didn't bother me at all either. Like, her finding out.
Yeah.
It made sense to me because if she's that big of a reporter, she's gonna find out. You know?
Yeah.
That's true.
And it kind of makes her look dumb if she can't recognize the difference between Clark Kent and Superman. So I understand where they, you know, the approach they took in making her learn his secret identity right away. It just makes her look smarter and like a better reporter.
So in that sense, she may not be the best part of this movie, but she's certainly the best Lois Lane.
The smartest one.
For movie Lois Lane, she was probably the best one out there.
So then they meet each other in the ship officially, and that's when we first get like an introduction to adult Clark Kent's heat vision, which I think is still the coolest depiction of heat vision that we've seen cinematically. You just see like his temples, like in his skull, glowing.
That's right. Yeah, you can see like the veins around his eyeballs, kind of.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Like
it's pretty badass.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
And it reminds me of something like a complaint that I heard someone say, because at the end of the film when Zod is like burning that family, they're like, why didn't he just like move his eyeballs around? But like the way they depicted the heat vision, it's almost like comes from like this internal source
behind
like,
the eyeballs.
Behind the eyeballs. Yeah, it doesn't come from the pupils. It comes from like the skull.
Yeah, it's not where he's looking. It's where his head's facing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
So I thought the scene when he was on the ship and he activates the computer and that's when Russell Crowe comes back and kind of gives the whole history of Krypton, like how the Kryptonians kind of long ago they explored the stars and everything. The way that was depicted with like the CGI kind of it was like liquid metal kind of. I thought that was pretty sweet.
The whole technology of Krypton I thought looked really cool. I loved that liquid metal look. And honestly, that's one of my two biggest like things. If I could change two things about this film, it would be that the ghost of Jor-El would have been that liquid metal technology. Because I did not like the fact that Russell Crowe just sort of like embedded a hologram into the ship when they didn't show that they had that technology previously. They showed holograms with the liquid metal, but he's not that. It kind of like took me out of the movie when I saw Jor-El again. I was like, aren't you dead?
No, that's a bad idea. It would look like he's having a conversation with T-1000 Russell Crowe or something.
Well, no, like it could have been in a Kedor bot.
Oh.
Or a Helix bot.
Okay.
No? No,
I agree that it was weird that he showed up as like a hard hologram, like just him standing there, and they hadn't, that was a little weird because I was like, this is kind of weird. And he kept popping around the ship, but
yeah,
if he was full on that liquid metal, it would look kind of weird. I mean, the liquid metal scenes were awesome,
maybe,
but I agree if they would have done something else, like maybe put him in one of the voice in the robot, or like an actual like some sort of a hologram of some way, it would have made more sense, or at least visually, but. Yeah, it is kind of weird that he was just, Russell Crowe in the costume popping around the ship.
Just walking around.
Because how was he being generated? What was making him? What was making him pop around the ship? I mean, was there hologram cameras all over the ship?
Just strobing.
What we saw earlier, like back in the Krypton scenes, when Lara like makes a phone call to Jor-El, and she's like, "Look behind you." We see her face, and it looked kind of CG, but oh well. I kind of wish that's what I hope they did for Jor-El.
Would have been interesting. So what was Superman's suit? So Superman, his suit was like an astronaut suit, or what was it?
I'm not really
How
sure.
come
Yeah.
it had the symbol of Jor-El on it?
Of
Yeah.
hope.
So it was like one of his ancestors' ships.
Well, I mean, they went around. If you notice, like during that scene where he's explaining Krypton's history, they're putting flags into the Earth that have the House of El symbol.
Oh.
And when he explains later on, that's what the House of El, that's what the symbol means of the House of El. It means hope.
Oh.
I don't know. They were spreading hope around the universe.
Yeah, I was
guess,
never
or
quite sure
just being
how the
hopeful.
suit came to be. It was just all of a sudden he had a suit and wore it. I never quite got where it came from.
Where he
Well,
got that stylish cape.
Yeah.
I actually like that they came up with an origin for it, this time, other than it being, like what was in the original films.
I don't remember.
In the comics,
I don't know if they have
in
an
the comics,
origin
his
for
mom
it.
Martha Kent made it for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in Birthright. She stitched together with fabric from
His blanket.
his blanket that
Yep.
he came to Earth on. I like that it was sort of passed down from the father, and it's almost like this suit of armor in a way. And even like the little S's, the texture that's all over the suit, it's like chainmail.
It's definitely the
yeah.
coolest suit they've ever had cinematically. I mean, it's a badass looking
Yeah.
suit.
It's the most interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in reality it's a little bit more vibrant, and they kind of took that away in the desaturation of the film.
Oh,
The final
100%.
product of the film.
Yeah.
There was
But,
there was a YouTube video I watched about it that they reversed it and brought all the color back into the movie, and it would have been a beautiful movie had they just left the color in, because there was a lot of color
Yeah.
in his suit. They desaturated it out to give
was-
it that blue tone.
Yeah, it was beautiful regardless. I still think, like, at the past, since like this whole superhero renaissance, cinematic renaissance, I still think this is like the most beautiful film that's been made.
Visually, yeah. I mean, I can't think of one film
about-
that looks better than this one.
Batman Begins.
No, this.
No, Batman Begins
This was
wasn't
better.
a very beautiful visual film though. I mean, there was definitely some scenes in it, but I mean, this one, Man of Steel, has way more cinematic awe in the
For sure.
what you see.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
Especially
definitely.
that flying scene, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So
They got
good.
the just orgasm.
So good, dude.
I'm
when I
seeing
was
it right
watching that in
now.
the theater, when I was watching that in the theater, I just wanted to cry. It's just so beautiful. Such a good moment in the film. Shut up.
It was pretty cool. It was not bad.
No. You need to watch it again and just like fully like experience it. It's more than just pretty cool.
I actually laughed out loud a little bit because at first when he first tried flying, it was more like he was just jumping really far.
Yeah.
And then like
Leaping.
at some point
Yeah.
he kind of like squeezed a little bit harder or
Oh
something,
my gosh.
and he kept flying.
Gotta use
It
those
just
butt
kind of
cheeks, man.
shifted into another gear.
Yeah.
Gotta use those butt cheeks. That's how he steers.
He's like,
Oh gosh.
yeah. It was cool though.
I think it was the score during that scene. Hans Zimmer score is like another like I think since this whole superhero cinematic renaissance, I think this is also the best score to come out of all the films that have come out in like the past 10 years.
It's pretty good.
It's really recognizable.
Yeah, it's iconic. I mean, you know what it is when you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean it's not John Williams, but it's still really good and really moving.
I think it's not just the score. I also think it's Russell Crowe's narration through the scene, like the whole like they will join you in the sun or things like that. It's very inspiring.
Yeah.
And how he crashes and then he gets back up.
Yeah.
Which is what Superman
Yeah, well-
should be. Superman should be inspiring.
Exactly. I was thinking about that actually the last time I saw the film. I was like, all these people who are saying that there's like no hope or inspiration in the film, look at this scene. Watch this scene. I could watch it again and again.
And it kind of ends almost in a way that seems like an homage to the previous Superman films where he's like coming up over the Earth
Yeah.
in outer space.
Yeah. It's just so cool just to see him like kick into another gear and another gear, and all of a sudden he's in Antarctica, and then all of a sudden he's in Africa, and then all of a sudden he's in Utah, and then all of a sudden he's in space. It's crazy to see how fast he's going.
Yeah. Superman's lame.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna punch you in the face.
And eventually he goes back home.
He goes back home, and Lois Lane. That's when Lois Lane like sort of investigates all these stories of him and figures out that Clark Kent is Superman. And then, he confronts her about it at the in the cemetery when she's looking at Jonathan Kent's grave.
And then we
learn about the death of Jonathan Kent, which
I'd say this part's dumb.
Oh my gosh.
I agree with you, Joe. I don't like this part.
What?
I don't like the Jonathan Kent death scene. I think it's...
Why? I think it's important that Jonathan Kent die in a way that Superman can't prevent.
Yes.
Just like in the first Donner film, he died by a heart attack, and Superman learns that with all his power, he still can't help everybody. In this one, he totally could have, and I think the comic book Superman would have.
Jonathan Kent didn't want him to. He didn't want to put himself in a situation where he would force his son to reveal himself before his son was ready. He was willing to make that sacrifice for his son.
So
I think his son was ready.
I agree with you. I agree with you that Jonathan Kent wanted him to wait, wanted to sacrifice himself for the betterness of his son. I totally agree with you on that. But I don't agree that Clark couldn't have saved him and wasn't ready to do that, because I 100% he was ready to do that. And the whole part of Jonathan Kent dying in the Superman mythos to better Clark and to better Superman is that he dies a very important person in his life dies where he can't save him. Not that he won't or doesn't want to, or he's not ready. He can't. There's no way, nothing he can do to save him. And in the movie, this scene, he can. There's no reason why he couldn't save him besides he's not ready or Jonathan Kent doesn't want him to. It's kind of a cop out in a little way that they had a moment they could have made a very powerful moment for Clark and for Superman, and they took it to a moment of making it. To me, it felt like it was more about the sheer willpower of Jonathan Kent saying, "No, I'm going to die for you," versus a moment for Clark where he sees somebody he can't save no matter what he does, and it helps him become a better person or a better superhero.
I agree with that.
Well, here's the thing. Clark Kent could have saved Jonathan Kent.
Right.
He could have. But, again, his father didn't want him to reveal himself. So he would have done it anyway. I think the character would have done it anyway.
I agree.
The Superman character that I know would have done it anyway.
I agree. Superman would have done it anyways because Superman's not one to let somebody die. If he can stop it, he's not going to let somebody die.
But you have to remember, this isn't Superman. He's not Superman yet. He still has like years to figure out like who he is, and he's wandering.
That's an excuse. I think deep down, even if he's not Superman by this point, he still has his core values that have been instilled with him growing up with Jonathan Kent and everything.
Yeah, but you have to remember, this Jonathan Kent was instilling the fact that, hey, maybe it's better to let a busload of kids die than to reveal yourself to the world.
But it's a good thing that Clark didn't do that.
Right.
Like, he made the right choice saving those kids despite potentially outing himself. And that was a choice that he made because of his morals, of his inner morals.
The whole thing... Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so to Clark, in that scene with the bus, it was more important for him to save the lives of those kids than for him to keep his identity secret. He made the moral decision to that was more important, which I think he would have done the exact same thing with his father. Yes. I mean, I get where you're going with he grew up with these morals, and that scene kind of instills the fact that Jonathan Kent raised him to, you're not ready, don't reveal yourself. But I still think that Clark still would have done it because.
Yes.
I mean, being a lifelong Superman fan and lifelong reading, all about Superboy and Clark Kent growing up, I still think even in that scene, the true Superman would have saved him regardless of revealing himself. And really,
I agree.
I mean, he's really fucking fast. You could have saved him without while the tornado was there, nobody would have saw him.
Well, he doesn't know his full potential yet. I mean, he didn't even know he could fly.
He knows he's fast.
He knows he's fast as
hell. You don't know that he knows that.
Like with the bus scene, we learned that Clark is willing to sacrifice his identity as an alien to save people. The only thing that we learned in the tornado scene is that he's very obedient to his father. It was the opposite scene of the bus scene, and it feels like it was untrue to character.
I agree.
What we've seen before.
That scene is actually one of my biggest issues with that movie, to be honest.
I
Stop defending it. You're wrong.
No, I mean, he saved the bus of kids and then realized that maybe he shouldn't have, because then the mom of the kid came over and was like, "Oh, this kid's Jesus."
I don't think he regretted saving those kids.
No, not for an instant. I think he regretted his parents yelling at him for it.
Well, no, because
Stop defending it. You're wrong.
The whole point. There were multiple reasons why Jonathan did not want Clark Kent to reveal himself at this time. Part of them being religion. He even says explicitly, like, do you imagine what would happen to like people's belief systems if they found out like what you can do? And also because like government experimentation can, as a father, Jay, if your child was an alien, would you want him going out doing these alien things?
Would you want him to save your life, Jay?
Absolutely. So
wrong answer.
Let me follow that up here. I agree. So I 100% agree with what you're saying as far as his motivations and that. But I still think that from the film perspective, it would have been a better moment had he disobeyed his father, saved him, and his father died of a heart attack from him being saved, right? Or after being saved, he dies of a heart attack. So where he goes against his father, saves him, or tries to save him, and the tornado or whatever invokes that heart attack that classically killed Jonathan Kent. So it's, again, even though he tried, he still was an issue that he couldn't solve.
So then that's Superman. But then you have Superman Begins right there. Then you have him revealing himself to the world.
Not necessarily. Like Jay said, he could be super fast. It could be vague. I mean,
he doesn't know he's super fast.
It could be the scene where he finds out he's super fast, right?
There you go.
I mean, I just think it could have been done better, and if he would have, even if he would have saved him, then he died right after that of a heart attack from complications or whatever, it would have made that a much more impactful scene for me as the viewer, and for I think for other people as a viewer who don't read into it as much as you are,
I honestly think,
I don't think those motivations were as clear
scene.
as
I don't think
you want them to be.
No.
I think they were pretty clear.
I think we should put it to a vote. Raise your hand if you think it was a shitty scene. 2 against 1.
Oh my gosh.
You're outvoted. Let's move on.
All right.
I honestly don't think they could have made that scene like more impactful or more emotional. At least for me.
I just told you how. He saves him and he dies of a heart attack.
No.
Exactly. That made me cry.
No.
When Jay said that.
Yeah.
So we're moving on.
Okay, moving on. So after that, then it really goes like back into sci-fi territory. Now almost kind of like horror sci-fi.
Oh, the message.
When Zod sends out the message, that was a pretty creepy scene. Like especially like in the dark farmhouse. I was like, oh shit. And then he kind of has another crisis of conscience about whether he should reveal himself or not. Goes to that church and to the priest, and then you get a flashback which goes into one of the two things I would change about the film is that in the flashback this bully like pulls him out of the truck and then like it was like, "Step, what you gonna do?" and Clark Kent chooses not to fight back. Jonathan Kent comes over and he asks if he's okay, and Clark responds with, I really wanted to hit them. And then Jonathan says, and then what? Would that have made you feel any better? But I really wish they would have said like, and then what? You would have killed him with one blow?
Right.
Sort of like setting up the fact that Jonathan is against Clark Kent killing, because they don't really set that up in the film that he's against killing. So then when he finally does kill Zod at the end of the film, I think it would have been made much more impactful if we would have known that not killing is part of this lesson that his father taught him. This is one of the reasons why you need to keep yourself in check and not reveal yourself, is because if you do lose control, people die. And that you don't want that, because you're not a killer, Clark.
Just if they would have added some foreshadowing of the whole, like you said, of Jonathan Kent instilling upon him that human life is sacred, that would have made the payoff at the end that much more impactful.
Not necessarily like even just human life, just like
life.
Yeah.
So the interrogation scene between Superman and Lois Lane, I thought was pretty good. I think it did a good job of setting up the chemistry between the two leads, because I do think they have pretty good chemistry.
Yeah.
I think
if there's any like chemistry setting moment in the film, that's the scene.
Well, and that whole scene where he walks in with the handcuffs on and leaves them on until he wants to take them off is just fucking balls. It's awesome.
And I love he just like gently separates his hands, and like they don't make a big show about it. There's no like spark or anything. Just like boom, what?
Yeah.
He doesn't even flex to do it.
No.
That was awesome.
That's pretty cool. This is a badass moment. And the fact that he can like see through the one-way mirror and everything. Mm-hmm. That was pretty cool.
Got a package of half-eaten wintergreen lifesavers in your pocket. Sucker!
So then they go up in the ship.
They go in the ship, which it's not really the introduction to Feora.
She's cool.
But it's like, the first time we get to see like the Kryptonians in those like badass helmets. And I love the fact that they used atmosphere as a weakness for the Kryptonians rather than kryptonite. Holy crap, I'm so glad they didn't use kryptonite in this film. I'm kind of done with kryptonite. I was actually kind of bummed even in Batman v Superman when they introduced it. I was like,
because it's such a Deus Machina piece of crap, like, method of hurting him.
It's like an on-off switch. Yeah, it's so...
Exactly.
It's so insane.
And like, its level of impact varies so much across...
It's not consistent.
In Superman... No, totally. In Superman Returns, he lifts a whole mountain of kryptonite. It's like, what the heck? You can't do that.
We don't talk about that movie. All right.
But yeah, I think it made me understand kryptonite a little bit better when you see that, like, these Kryptonian elements, like the atmosphere and conditions and everything, he's not used to them because they were so harsh, and he's lived on Earth his whole life, so it would be damaging to him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I also liked the fact that they used Superman was better in the atmosphere because he'd been there, and there was a learning curve for Zod and Feora and them to learn how to use these powers they got because they weren't used to them, and they
the senses.
Yeah, they weren't just automatically super great with it. You know, they weren't automatically they didn't walk in being Superman. You know,
right. It was a great like just use of world building and like the rules they established in this world. I thought it was great storytelling, that the weakness that they introduced. Yeah. Way better than kryptonite. Okay, so this scene also has the sequence where they go into Kal-El's head. And
to try to find the codex, right?
Well, no, why did they go into his head? Yeah, I guess to find the codex. But he shows them like a barn. Then as he's learning like their plans to terraform Earth, like he starts to get these visions of like the skulls and stuff like that. It's an interesting visual. But it is like I think another one of those like Zack Snyder moments, like those like the nightmare sequence in BVS. They didn't have to show that.
What I'm wondering is who put those images in his head. Like Zod was telling him his plan, but like did Zod like project those skulls for Clark to drown in?
No, I don't think Zod was projecting anything into his head. I think Clark was having a dream and he was interpreting the information that he was getting.
It's a cool scene, but it's weird.
Cool visual.
Yeah.
But
it reminds me a lot of the scene in Watchmen where Silk Spectre and Night Owl are like embracing with the atom bomb going off in the background, kind of.
Yeah. It's very like T2.
Yeah, apocalyptic. So they escape the ship. The Kryptonians find out the codex is down on the farm.
They think it is.
He rescues Lois because her ship has a crack in it, and
you get a really strong religious allegory kind of moment when Jor-El's like, you could save them, you could save all of them, and then Henry Cavill just like floats backwards like with his arms stretched. Yeah.
That's not subtle at all.
No, not at all.
No. Is it supposed to be subtle?
No, not at all.
I don't think Zack Snyder is very good at subtlety. I think we mentioned that in a previous podcast.
Well, no, like even in the Richard Donner films, the religious angles were played pretty heavily upon. They weren't subtle.
I don't remember Christopher Reeve doing any type of crucifix pose.
Oh no, he didn't do a crucifix pose. But like the whole, like, watch the movie again and Marlon Brando's like monologue as he's like looking over his child. It's totally all up in there, the religious allegory.
That's true. I think I vaguely remember that. So now we're up to that fight. And this is where the movie really starts getting shitty.
Oh, fuck you. The Battle of Smallville? Dude. Okay, not only is this film like the most beautiful film to come out since the cinematic superhero renaissance, and not only does it have the best score, it also has some of the best fight sequences.
It's literally
like,
the first time you
down.
see Superman fight, like actually fight in a movie.
Yeah, right?
It's good if you like destruction porn.
Oh my...
Your
I'll
destruction
say,
porn.
like this is when I first started having problems with the movie. Honestly, when he picks up Zod because he threatens his mom, and like he like throws him into a 7-Eleven gas station, and I'm just like, holy shit, dude! I hope there was like nobody in those cars, because they all just died because of your recklessness.
You know, I'm sorry it can't be so candy-coated like your Marvel films. That it actually has some realism in it. That, you know, 'cause
punk.
people get hurt, things get
damage.
destroyed. I mean, there's
They didn't get destroyed. They were. I would say that they were murdered by Superman
Oh my gosh.
because he threw
It's,
Zod
I mean,
into
when
the gas
you
station.
have figures that are these powerful on this planet, where we're not that powerful, there's gonna be collateral damage.
And I'm sorry,
thing-
and the Marvel films, you know, very much candy coat over it and of you know, collateral damage that happens. They very much, oh no, that didn't happen. Nobody got hurt.
Well, that's because when you have that much collateral damage, the good guy starts looking like the bad guy.
But
It's not a bad thing to kind
you have to
of
remember.
over.
You have to remember that this film is like as grounded in reality as you could make a Superman film. You know,
They could still do that and have him not throw Zod into a gas station full of people. You realize that? Like, look at BVS. They ended up on that uninhabited
you know
island.
why they did that? Because of little bitches like you.
No,
Yeah.
it was a good thing that they did that. It was a good thing that they did that.
No, not necessarily.
You're wrong. Stop defending it.
I've heard this before. You know, you talk about the destruction of the movie being a huge bad thing and people dying in the movie being a bad thing, but like, you know, if you compare it to like, you know, the Marvel counterparts where there's huge destruction and people die, like the numbers of people that die in the Man of Steel movie make way more sense than the 80 people that died in the Battle of New York or whatever it was. That is
that's right. It was like
fucking
79.
ridiculous. Or what
Maybe
like,
the Avengers are just that good.
with the 30 people who died in Washington D.C. or not even 100 people who died in Sokovia. That's fucking insane. Like those big battles don't happen and thousands of people don't die. I don't give a shit who they are. You have the Hulk jumping around the city, people are gonna fucking die.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So I'm sorry that your expectations are so dramatically blown out of proportions by Marvel, but it's way more realistic that thousands of people die in a superhero battle in a city. Like
It was like 9/11 times 1,000.
no, it wasn't.
It was like 911,000.
9/11, so 3,000 times 1,000 people, 30,000 people died.
I think it was like 1,000 people.
Yeah,
died.
it was like
They
1,200
revealed
people. In Man of Steel, 1,200 people died in Battle of Metropolis,
Yeah.
which is realistic.
Yeah.
Which is
they
very
revealed the number in
realistic.
BVS. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Compared to 80
it seems
people
like
in the
it
Battle of
should
New
be more
York
than
when that monster was knocking down buildings. Give me a fucking break.
Seriously. Your expectations have been Disneyed.
There's definitely a lot of destruction in the movie, but it's way more realistic than the fucking bullshit Marvel pulls.
At least Marvel, when they throw people around, they don't do it into a crowded gas station. I don't think they need to portray the destruction as realistic. I mean, considering that these are superhero, like they're fantasies and everything.
Well,
I mean,
we already established
it's not
that
necessary.
We already established that this take on Superman is based in realism and sci-fi. Any other sci-fi movie, you would have had the same casualties.
I don't know about that.
I do know that. Despite what you think, just to move on, despite what you think of the destruction, you have to admit that the action is badass.
Yeah, that fight scene in Smallville is awesome.
Oh my gosh, Feora? Okay, so we talk all the time about like Luke Cage and how in the trailers for the new show that's coming up, like he's walking around and just like bullets are bouncing off of him and he just could just like do whatever he wants. Feora in this battle sequence,
She's in God
we
mode.
call that God mode. This is like Super Saiyan God mode. She's just like standing there taking the bullets and then just like moving really fast and zipping between them and throwing them and just punching them. It's the coolest I've ever seen like a Superman character like
Kick-ass.
move and kick ass in a film. She was so cool. I'm so in love with her.
Yeah, that scene was my only problem with that scene when I first saw it. It was almost too fast in theaters because I couldn't I saw it in 3D at first, and I couldn't follow what was going on.
It's a really cool battle sequence, and then they introduce the atmospheric weakness, which again I think is really cool to end that fight, and then both sides kind of like go their own separate way, and Zod learns that the Codex is in Kal-El, and Superman's side figures that they could use the Phantom Drive in the ship that sent him to Earth to get rid of the evil Kryptonians.
So I'm guessing that the Phantom Drive. So it seems like the Phantom Drive is what opens like a wormhole for Kal-El's baby ship to pass through.
Yeah,
And maybe it's like the same technology that sends, like maybe opens like a wormhole to some kind of like, I don't know if it's a prison planet or just a pocket of space.
it's the Phantom Zone.
The Phantom Zone, I guess. So it's like wormhole technology, I'm guessing.
It's technology that goes into another dimension, but like I'm guessing time and space are different there because it allows you to wormhole jump.
Yeah, I'm not
Which
sure.
I thought was great.
I'm not sure how it works in the movie, but I know in the old stories, the Phantom Zone was basically an area where you don't age. You just serve a sentence out, and it's like another dimension that time is not concurrent with time in this dimension at all.
I didn't know that you didn't age. That is cool. So, yeah, maybe space and time isn't different. Maybe there just is no time. So that would mean the baby Kal-El would have made the entire length of that journey. He just didn't age. That's cool. Anyway,
Science.
Again, like
Science.
you always you read stories about the Phantom Zone and you see it used in cartoons and stuff. I thought this was a brilliant use of the Phantom Zone.
And to use it as a weapon against the bad guy at the end.
And it's better.
Yeah.
It's better than the mirror in the old ones and the shield thing.
For sure. That was weird. That was dumb.
Or the cellophane S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so fucking stupid.
That was stupid. I was like, what the fuck?
Superman can't duplicate himself, assholes.
I thought the world, the
Actually,
terraforming.
You say that there was a comic book in the '60s where Superman could create little Supermans of himself out of his hand.
Oh, that's right. He shoots them out of his hand.
True.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's true.
There was a
That
time in the
would've been
Silver
cool
Age where
if
Superman had
Christopher
pretty
Reeve
much
did that.
any
Well, back
power.
then his powers weren't defined. He could do super anything.
Yeah. He could super shake his face and make his face look like somebody else for a while.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. Yeah. Super ventriloquism too. He
Yep.
could project his voice to other people.
He had some of the most ridiculous powers.
Yeah. I actually think the movie kind of helped, like the first Superman movie. Sort of, because he never used heat vision in the first Superman movie.
No, but in the Quest for Peace, he had telekinesis and was able to like rebuild the Wall of China.
We
Yeah.
don't talk about that fucking movie.
We don't. Wait, so also at this moment in Man of Steel, Zod goes to the Kryptonian scout ship to get the Genesis chamber, and he also learns how to adapt his senses to Earth's atmosphere.
And that's when the terraforming starts, right?
Yep, because then they send out the World Engine. So while they're preparing the Phantom Drive, Superman goes to like the Indian Ocean and fights off the terraformer.
That dragon thing, was it necessary?
Dragon thing?
Yeah, well, I call it a dragon thing, but it was like this big, like, kind of tentacle kind of thing that fought him.
Oh, that was the like the same metallic liquid metal technology.
Yeah.
Well, how else is it supposed to defend itself?
I don't know.
It's a machine.
Why not?
Does it,
shouldn't.
like, if you're thinking about what it's used for and why the Kryptonians built it and why they were using it, does it need a means of defense? It seems very sinister when it has that type of, like, dragon creature.
Knowing that Superman was gonna go down it, they're probably like, "Hey, put one of those liquid metal weapon things on there before you send it down."
I think you're stretching there.
Boom,
It's a little bit.
solve the problem.
I think you're reaching a little bit for that one.
Yeah, I mean,
I see I see the World Engine as a science machine, not a war machine. It's a machine.
Exactly.
I don't see it as a machine that would have its own defense. I see it as a machine that would have other things around it to defend it. Using it as, unless Zod's team completely refitted it with weapons on it, whatever may have happened. I don't know. They didn't tell us, but
exactly. There you go.
Well, it kind of makes.
We'll just leave it at that.
The Kryptonians in general kind of look like dicks.
The warrior Kryptonians.
The Kryptonians were dicks.
They were assholes. They destroyed themselves.
They were.
What they deserve.
I'm glad they died.
And speaking of that,
they did die.
Yeah, Kal-El kind of totally destroyed his entire race.
Yeah.
That was kind of, it was a fleeting moment, but like the implications of that were pretty heavy, I thought.
I think
when he said like Krypton had its chance.
I think if you didn't have the skull scene earlier, that the killing of like all the embryos would not have worked. I think it would have made, and I'm sure to some people it didn't work regardless. To me, it was definitely like a shocking moment, but it was one that I understood just because of the whole skull scene and what Kal-El realized would happen.
It was a massive choice that he made in almost a split second. So
yeah,
that was crazy. And then the ship crashes.
Right, through a bunch of buildings.
I
didn't realize how many...
It was like 9/11.
Oh my gosh.
Times at least 12. I think he knocked down 12 buildings.
I didn't realize how much destruction that building caused until in BVS, that scene where it's just like slicing through all those skyscrapers. I was like, oh.
I remember that from the movie, yeah. I was like, damn, you didn't have to do it that much. You
That's
could have knocked over like 3 and got the same point across.
That's going to cost a lot of money to rebuild.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's like trillions, billions.
I think it was 2 trillion. I think that was the damage to Metropolis.
Where are you guys getting these figures from?
No, it was like someone estimated that was the actual figure.
Okay.
I think I read that too.
What did you think of the final battle?
So, okay, I lied. There were 3 things I would want to change about this movie. The last thing I would want to change is for Zod to explicitly say, because a lot of people didn't get this, I think, is that Zod wanted to die. And he wanted to force Kal-El to kill him because he had just lost everything. His whole reason for existing was just destroyed. He said that exactly, but I wish like he would have said, like, I have nothing left to live for, kill me. And Clark Kent would have, of course, said no. And then Zod does say later on, like, I'm going to destroy every single one of them.
You think Zod was suicidal?
I think at that point, yeah, he was.
What do you think Zod would have done if he killed Superman?
I think he was trying to get Superman to kill him.
So you don't think he was trying to kill Superman?
I don't think it's in his programming. He
killed Jor-El.
But there are still Kryptons left. Kal-El's the last Krypton. He's the one Krypton who could bring back the entire race.
I think he would have killed Superman, and I think he would have killed everybody on the planet. If you have a suicidal bad guy, where are the stakes? Why is he fighting back?
He has nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose. That's the thing. The stakes are that he's willing to destroy everything because he doesn't care. They're not a part of his people. He has no reason for existing anymore. He just wants Superman to kill him.
I don't think he's suicidal. I think he's on a murderous rampage.
So I think I don't think Zod was suicidal, but I think, like earlier you mentioned, his purpose was no longer there, and since Zod was birthed in the, he was created by committee, right? He was created for a purpose. His purpose no longer existed, therefore he no longer had a reason to live. So he needed to be, in his mind, I believe he needed to be taken out, right? Because he no longer had a purpose. His reasoning, his creation reason was gone. He could no longer, protect the Codex, protect the Kryptonian people. That it wasn't there, and Superman had taken that away from him. So he either needed to keep destroying things or just end what he was, because his purpose was now null and void.
Yeah, when I first saw the film, that was the initial takeaway that I got from that whole, like, their dialogue between the big final fight was that he had nothing left to live for, and that he was just going to kill everyone on Earth until Superman killed him. And I think that's what he was really going for in the last like scene where of the battle where he's trying to heat vision that family. He's like, either you kill me or I kill this whole family right in front of you.
Right, and he wasn't gonna stop there. And it wasn't. I think it's more than just he had no reason. You know, he had no reason to live. It was just he mentally didn't understand what to do next besides just continued destruction, because his purpose was gone. There wasn't his will to live wasn't even a factor, because he was at a point where he didn't understand what he was supposed to do next, because how he was brought up, how he was programmed, there was no next step after that. It was like if you want to think about it in kind of different language, it was like a computer crash. He just keeps going downhill until he stopped.
Yeah,
which is why Superman had to kill him.
Which is fascinating. I love the character of Zod. I love his reasoning for what he does and why he does it. And then, at the very end, he's, to me, the next best DC villain next to the Dark Knight's Joker. But if you take, like, current continuity, that would make him the best villain, because the Nolan films aren't in DC film continuity. I really liked Zod as a villain. Really complex and just really well written.
In the comics, Superman killed Zod with like a kryptonite gas. Yes?
I think it was just straight up kryptonite. It was like in a lead box, and he was wearing a...
Depends on which comic you're reading, but yeah, there was a kryptonite in a lead box that he got him with. But he, I think the whole him killing him, like I don't have a problem with him killing Zod at all at the end, because it totally fits the tone of the movie, and it totally fits the ending of the character of Zod. Like that's what needed to happen, and you can see there's so much emotion in Henry Cavill's face and his body language when he does it that shows how hard this is for him to do, and not even physically hard, but it's how mentally and emotionally hard it is for him to take this life, even though he knows he taking this life is going to save so many other lives. He still doesn't want to do it, but he knows that there's nothing else for him to do. The only way to stop Zod is to do this. There's no other option. And he's young, and he's young enough in his career to not have the ability to find another option. He's still very new in being Superman.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Mm-hmm. And I also loved like the emotion that he expressed on killing Zod. Like I feel like if it was hilarious. Shut the fuck up. if it was any other like superhero or any other movie, like they would have just had the hero like be like, yeah, that's what you get for step, or I don't know, some catchphrase or something. Yeah, if
it was Marvel, it would have been a catchphrase like, yeah, suck that.
Gotcha, suckers.
You forgot your boredom pass.
Exactly.
Snap back from that Zod.
We got to get like a Twitter contest going, like the best catchphrase that Superman could have done after killing Zod.
That'd be great.
Email or tweet at us at DC Marvel Battle with the best Superman catchphrase.
Now I'm gonna start writing up a bunch and just post them. But no, he didn't do that. It was much more emotional and much more impacting, which according to Zack Snyder was like the whole reason he did that, because he wanted to give Superman a reason for why he doesn't kill. And it was the fact of that it was such a traumatic experience for him when he did kill someone, let alone it being like the last remaining other person of his species.
That he knows about so far.
Snyder, what was that?
So that he knows about so far, because there's other Kryptonians out there in this universe.
Supergirl.
Yep, Supergirl's out there.
Yeah. Well, isn't a rumor that she's like responsible for creating the Amazons?
That was.
Oh, really?
I don't think that's going to come true. Like there was a rumor that was that that first Kryptonian ship, there was two people who left: Supergirl, who created the Amazons, and somebody else who created Aquaman and the Atlanteans.
Yeah.
I really hope that's not true.
Yeah, that would suck.
I don't want that to be true. I mean,
because it's too Star Wars. It's like everything is connected.
It's like Wonder Woman and Aquaman and them don't need to be connected to Superman and Thor. They can have their own lore. It's fine, you know. But judging by the Wonder Woman trailer, they very much allude to Wonder Woman was created by Zeus in the trailer. So I don't think they're going that route.
For all we know, the Kryptonians sort of could have been like the Asgardians in Marvel. They're not like gods. They're just like a higher
alien life
form.
They could be. I don't want them to go that route because it's going to be a very touchy road, and DC's already on a very touchy road to begin with.
Yeah, I have a feeling if David Goyer wrote the script, that's what they would have done. But since Geoff Johns has gone in and done rewrites,
it's going to be much better.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, the Mother Box is going to be Kryptonian, and then like the Speed Force is going to be part of the Phantom Drive or something like that.
God, I hope not. No.
And then Batman is...
Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, the way they depict the Speed Force, that does look very Phantom Drive-y.
Yeah, with the lightning.
Because
it's totally gonna be Phantom Drive tech.
It makes it look electronic. It makes it look more like electricity than like lightning.
You just totally called it. Well, what's the difference between electricity and lightning, though?
Shut up. Electricity, like from like a power plant, or versus lightning from the sky. Okay.
All right.
Because lightning's yellow on his chest. Shut up. You make me explain things.
Is there anything else we want to say about the final fight?
I think it was beautifully done. I 100% agree with the reasons why Superman killed him. I think he had the right motivations. I think that scene's beautiful for me. Just the emotion you see in Superman, like I said, it just brings it all back together. The only thing I wish there would have been more like foreshadowing earlier in the movie, like I mentioned, of his desire to not kill anybody. It would have made that emotional reveal that much more powerful at the end.
Yeah, I know the decision to make him kill was controversial. To me, I was fine with it because I knew that happened in the comics, and what else was he going to do, honestly? The big controversial thing to me, as you know, was the destruction porn. I don't think they need to evoke 9/11 in a Superman movie.
Ugh. Again, if it was
if it was real,
if it was any other sci-fi film, this is the sci-fi angle.
But it's not any other sci-fi film. It's a Superman film, which is not traditionally sci-fi.
It's the sci-fi Superman. I did come to a realization recently, and that like if you take a look at the golden age of superhero comics, and especially DC, you have it was very fantastical.
Yeah.
In the Golden Age, you have like Green Lantern. He gets his power from a magic ring.
Alan Scott.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Alan Scott.
Yeah, Alan Scott. Yeah. But then like in the Silver Age, things became way more sci-fi. Like the Flash got his powers from science, and
as opposed to Mercury's helmet, or right? Isn't that where Jay Garrick got his?
No, it was hard water vapors. Don't ask me.
Oh yeah,
but like in Green Lantern introduced like aliens and stuff like that. So the Silver Age of comics became way more sci-fi. I sort of feel like post Nolan DC cinema universe is like the Silver Age. It's much more sci-fi and less fantastical, like Burton's Batman and Donner's Superman.
Yeah,
that was like the golden age. We're in the Silver Age of DC cinema right now.
And kind of Marvel is in the same boat with the first Iron Man movie. Like things became very kind of sci-fi after that. It's like the way they presented Thor and magic and everything like that. It was a very almost scientific means. Like he's no longer like an Asgardian god. He's like,
not a god.
He's like a high-tech alien,
higher dimensional being.
Yeah, kind of.
So that's cool. Okay, so we're at the end of the movie. So my favorite line of the movie was when Clark Kent is at the Daily Planet, and the film ends with Lois Lane saying, "Welcome to the planet."
That's your favorite line in the movie?
Such a well-written line. It's like, boom, yes. I mean, it has so many meanings behind it.
Yes. It's kind of a callback. It's a callback to the classic Superman, like the Golden Age Superman, because in Golden Age Superman, Clark Kent didn't work for the planet until after he was Superman. Like he didn't go work at the planet and become Superman. He was already Superman, and he took the job at the planet to get himself closer to the stories, so he knew where to go. Like it wasn't that he went and got a job because he wanted to be a reporter. He became a reporter to understand, what was going on, where Superman needed to go interject himself in to help out, because there obviously wasn't the internet back then. So he had to. What do? You become a reporter. That's how you get the stories. That's how you get into the action.
Yeah, and I sort of feel like Lois Lane being the proxy character for humanity in this film, her saying, well, when she says in the film, "Welcome to the planet," everyone around, all the characters around her are understanding, "Welcome to the Daily Planet." But it's it has this subtext of saying "Welcome to the planet Earth, Superman. We accept you."
Yeah, it's very subtext heavy.
Yeah, and then he just smiles, and they play that badass score in the background, and boom, it ends. I was I just wanted to stand up and start clapping. Oh, it was so good.
You guys like this movie way too much. That's all I'm saying. As far as mediocre superhero movies go, it's pretty good. But
best action, best score, best visuals of any superhero film.
Best city destruction.
Destruction.
Yeah, why not? In the past 10 years. Let's everyone give their 5-star rating. Let's start with Joseph.
I give it 3.5. I think it was about as good as Age of Ultron and Days of Future Past. And I compared to those kind of films. BVS, the non-theatrical cut, I think it was about as good as that.
No, you mean theatrical cut?
Yeah, the theatrical cut, sorry. I think the extended cut was better. I gave the extended cut 4 stars. I gave Man of Steel 3.5.
I think this was much better than... I think Man of Steel was much better than Age of Ultron or any of those other films that you just touted off. For me, this is 4 stars. I think it's a solid 4.
That's what I did.
Honestly, the Man of Steel film, that exceeded my expectations in terms of what they were able to establish in that world. I can never come up with that story. I could come up with a good Superman story, I think, but it's going to be a fairly generic Superman story, maybe something closer to Superman Birthright. But what they did, David Goyer is just a smarter writer than I am. They did a really great sci-fi angle that I think deserves, again, 4 stars.
Yeah, see, I would also rate it 4 stars, and here's why. I really enjoyed the film. I liked the tone they had in it as far as, his motivations. I thought it was just a fantastic looking film. Obviously, Snyder does, great visuals. It's a different type of superhero film because when it came out, even now looking back on it, it's not the normal superhero film, just like Deadpool's not the normal superhero film. It's a different type of film. Deadpool is hilarious. The action scenes are good. It doesn't take itself seriously, and it's a lot of fun. This movie makes me think. This movie's not fun. I don't watch this movie to have fun. I watch this movie to see the fight scenes, to see the lore they put onto Superman, and to look at the beautiful visuals, and to try to
just
put
be
my brain.
awe-inspired.
Yeah, be awe-inspired and put my brain into trying to understand why Superman's doing what he does.
I go to Superman film to have fun. That's why I go to Superman film.
Yeah. We go to a Marvel movie.
That's what I do. All right. I think that's it for the review. Jay, where can people find you?
So on the internet, if you just Google search Y2CL, you'll find me. That's me everywhere. My website's Y2CL. On Instagram, Y2CL. Or actually, the website's Y2CL.net. I forgot that part. But just if you search Y2CL, you'll find me. I'm all over, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Just hit me up anywhere.
If you like dick jokes,
yep,
and if you like fart jokes,
dick and fart jokes is what I do, primarily.
It's pretty damn good.
Yep. I also do a podcast too that's recording soon. So
yeah, I better be on it.
You will be on it, both of you. Y2CR Radio is coming back. I got to convince Kaylee, my wife, to sit down and do the damn thing because she's the co-host with me.
2 episodes.
Yeah, you were on a couple. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jay, thank you very much for being on the show.
Yeah, dude, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be calling you back, when we're bored.
Anytime.
When we're lonely. When
Anytime.
we're thinking about you.
I stay up late, don't worry.
Good. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so that was our Man of Steel review.
It was a long one.
Yeah. I just know I'm going to be listening to this, though, and be like, oh, I should have mentioned this instead.
I think we said everything that ever needs to be said about that film.
Yeah, for you. So, yes, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter, at DC Marvel Battle. You can reach out to us via email at dcmarvelbattlecast@gmail.com.
Listen to us on SoundCloud. Listen to us on YouTube. And if you enjoy our episodes, go ahead and give us a rating, because that's how we get exposed to more people.
Yeah.
Again, only rate us if you like us, though.
Yeah. And when we're asking you to subscribe and rate us and stuff, we're not we don't do this for money. We do this because we like to do it. But I'm not gonna lie, I would love to get some free movie passes. So please rate us so I can get closer to getting some free movie passes.
Okay, well, without further ado,
Up and away.
true believers.